All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado. Today we're heading up to Texarkana to talk to Chase Bruce. Chase, welcome to the
Yes,
show,
sir.
man.
How are you doing
First
today? I
question.
appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you got it. We're going to talk about a lot of things, and so hopefully we won't feel rushed or anything. But first of all, Texarkana, I'm just a guy from Virginia. I'm an East Coaster, Flatlander over here. Where's Texarkana? Tell us about Texarkana.
It's an awesome place. I fortunately for me grew up on the Texas side, but probably 30 seconds from the Arkansas line, which we call state line. So I believe like us in Minneapolis are if not two of the three, maybe only cities I think in the United States that a street runs through both sides or something like that. There's a town on both sides with the same name. But it's Texarkana, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana. So just an awesome place. So many good athletes have come through here. NFL guys like Ryan Mallett and Ike Forte, Kobe Hamilton, Joe Anderson, Billy Sims. So NFL players have been, kind of a mainstay in our hometown. Baseball players like Michael Waka and, Craig Monroe, Slade Heathcott, just really, really good players, just great town of sports and people and businessmen and mentors. So it's been a blessing for me to grow up here, and I'm sure some people don't love it, but it's made me who I am, and definitely proud to be coming to you live from Texarkana today.
Well, for the benefit of my longtime listeners, they will remember another Texarkana guy. I think Brett Usry, with Twin City Postgrad up there. If anybody wants to go back in the archives, that was from January 2022. We're almost 2 years out from that as we record. But Brett's a good dude, and he's running a cool post grad program. That's you can find that conversation at playinschool.com/Usry, USREY. And Brett, don't you?
Yeah, Brett had worked with us, and then he kind of ventured off, did his own thing for a little bit with Texas Freedom, and then he kind of fell in love with the post grad model, which is it's a beast, and it's a lot maybe more commitment than I don't know if they knew originally. So I think I caught Brett at a good time and kind of got him and Matt to come back to Sticks, and we kind of absorbed Texas Freedom in the last couple months. So just what Brett's doing with the post grad with him and Mark Hendricks and Cedric Harris and Matt and just all those guys over there doing a phenomenal job, and just another bright spot to our community. And obviously and your listeners know we're in a weird time in recruiting, and there's guys that love it, and it's another outlet, and it's awesome what Brett and those guys are doing.
Yeah, I'm actually a really big fan. I mean, pre-COVID, I think the number of guys who were appropriate fits for that concept was pretty low. I mean, probably enough to fill a roster here and there. Post-COVID, I think that number has exploded exponentially, and it's a really great way for guys to spend a year getting bigger, faster, stronger, and sort of restarting that recruiting clock. But we'll talk about all things recruiting and travel baseball. I kind of want to get to know you a little bit better, and give any listeners a chance to sort of hear where you're coming from, what your background is, and how the Sticks came to be. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'll bet I was an awful player. I guess my superpower or my ability that God blessed me with was just people really liked me. A lot of people along the way, just coaches and parents and players on teams. I was always a guy that never really had a spot, but everybody wanted around, and just made lifelong memories along the way. Starting at 14, 15, we did stuff that looking back we weren't supposed to do, and that's kind of been my whole career. I look up now, 34 years old, and I think, we had this talk. We just had this talk with our players at Jupiter. You know, we're one swing away from playing on the last day, and you know, we keep every year, every month, every week at times. It feels like doing once in a lifetime things. And you know, I have to remind our guys and myself at times that you know, essentially my career has been a long collection of once in a lifetime memories that just seem to keep happening over and over. And you know, try not to take that for granted and try not to think that's the norm, but just, you know, Glenn Welch and Scott Minnie and John McClure and Barry Norton, you know, in high school, they, you know, we grew up very poor. My dad doesn't really like for me to tell that side of the story, but we, you know, we knew that baseball, or Dad really wanted me to play football. I'm a bigger guy and just didn't really ever like it. Was just good enough to play a lot. But, you know, he was hoping football would pay for college. And, you know, when Will bowled at Texarkana College, you know, kind of, you know, basically we had some different ventures, but Texarkana is where I wanted to go. It's where all our friends were at. They were top 25 in the country. When Coach Mastingale offered me, you know, a scholarship to be a student assistant, you know, we realized that baseball would pay for my education. It became a no-brainer. And, you know, I think I really fell in love with it at 18, 19. You know, I think at 14, 15, I fell in love with the relationships and the camaraderie, and it never felt like work. It never felt like, you know, like, hey, Dan, we got practice today, or, man, I can't believe we got to go to this game. You know, it never felt like that, even when I wasn't playing, and which was never. So it never was a drag. It never was, you know, whatever. And I look up again, you know, all these years later, it's the same thing. You know, it's a blessing. It's something that I love, and I think my entire career to this point has just been, you know, we talked about post-grad a little bit, and I sat here and I was just kind of thinking while you were talking, and I just thought, hey, you know, any kid that can use baseball to see the world, to get an education, to build memories and friendships, and, you know, there's people that work for me now that, you know, I met 20 years ago, and, you know, who knew when we were 15 to 18 or even in college that any of us would be successful or even alive, honestly, after COVID. So, you know, it's one of those things where my career has essentially, and my story has essentially been, I fell in love with something at an early age, which honestly more so was the friendships and the memories and the getting to travel. You know, I wasn't a family. We never traveled growing up. We never took vacations. You know, I can remember our summer ball team going all over the region in the South, and that felt like vacation in the summer. So baseball, you know, it's been really good to me, and I owe it my life. And, you know, it's made memories and trips and got me an education. And from that, you know, at first I fell in love with the friendships and all that stuff. And then when I fell in love with the game at the same time, I mean, ever since it's pretty much been an extension of me. And, you know, my story is just, you know, I want as many kids to be able to play college baseball as possible, and not really because I care or, you know, about the numbers or how many we've had or wanting to get more people to sign up. I care because, you know, I was that really bad player that didn't deserve it. And somebody in Glenn Welch and Scott Minnie and Barry Norton, those guys made sure that I had somewhere to go get an education. And that's what we want for this next generation that play for us. Some will go off to Arkansas in the league and all that stuff. And, you know, we'll be there. We were there when Mason Wynn made his debut. You know, we'll do all that stuff too. But, you know, honestly, just as proud as the guy who's going to that D3 school that's not very good. And I go, hey, man, that's awesome for that kid. Like, he loves baseball more than that guy going to Arkansas does. I mean, I know he does. And we've kind of built the sticks like that. And we started with 2 teams. And, you know, at our height, we had 25 high school teams. I'm not exactly sure how many we'll have this summer, but it'll be 20-ish, I'm sure, and we've built 20 times how many is ever on a roster. We've tried to treat them all the same, and some are better than others talently, and that's just the way life is, unfortunately. But, you know, we try to make sure they all get a chance to play at a school that fits to their talent level, their financial, you know, level, their academic level, and, you know, try to make sure that we can help each kid, you know, play as long as God will let them.
That's pretty awesome, man, and some super self-awareness. It seemed like at some point in time you recognize, oh man, some of these kids are a little better than me, but you didn't just give up because you enjoyed it, And at the end of the day, like, baseball's supposed to be fun. Like, you know what I mean? If you're good at it but not having fun, like, what's the point?
We have people a lot will say, hey, I don't want to travel to this and my kid play, not every pitch or, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sit here and I think, man, I tell this story a bunch, and he's going to be a big leaguer. Jaden Hill was a second rounder with the Rockies and one of the closest kids we've ever had. He was in my wedding. He walked Alicia's mom down the aisle in our wedding. Love Jaden. He's doing great in Arizona Fall League. I can visibly remember Jaden was as talented as they come. His brother was a 10th rounder. His dad's one of the best basketball players to ever come out of Arkansas. And our first weekend we ever played, we had Connor Nolan on the same team, who's now with the Cubs, and Connor was the ace at Arkansas for a long time. And it's like 45 minutes before start. These guys are 10th graders at the time. Connor's already lone tossing. And Jaden's like, why is Connor throwing so early? And I was like, we don't really know every kid's routine. It is what it is, right? It's summer ball. It's our first year. There isn't a past weekend. There isn't a year before. We're kind of getting to know everybody. And Jaden grew up 20 minutes from me, and I've known him since he was a kid. So, but he goes, why is he throwing so early? And I was like, just probably right 45 minutes out. So I was like, when do you start throwing? He goes, should I just go to the bullpen? He goes, I don't really. He's like, I don't really long toss before I throw. And I just sit there and I think, and I don't know this, and now that everybody's alphas and got egos, and I know Jaden won't remember that moment like I do, but I just sit here and go, hey, that one day could have changed his whole career. I mean, he was still going to be uber talented. He was still going to be blessed. He was still going to be big and strong and whatever. But, like, just seeing another player do something, another player from 4 hours away, that had different high school coaches and different summer coaches and different training and whatever, you just watch one thing, and these kids are way smarter than we give them credit for. And I just sit here and I think if anybody loves baseball, you don't have to play with sticks. I wish they all did. I wish we had 2,000 teams, not for financial, but just for 2,000 bodies wearing something that I'm so proud of. But whoever you play for, I encourage anybody that likes baseball and loves baseball, plays for their high school, whether that's a 1A school or a 7A school, or wants to play for their high school and they're in the program. You just can't put on paper, something you can learn from playing with kids you don't know that are from different backgrounds, from different high schools. And, man, I just think, and it's not cheap, it's not easy, it's not convenient to play travel baseball, but stories like that, I just sit here and I think, man, you never know what you might pick up on or change one thing about your game. You might have a new coach that tells you something your high school coach has told you every day, but this guy said he's a little bit younger, relates to you a little better, believes in you a little more, and all of a sudden you go back and they go, oh, now he's a good player. He might have always been a good player. He just needed to unlock something, and whether they play with us or our rivals or somewhere in Richmond, Virginia, I just hope that every player, whether they feel like they're not good enough or not, I encourage everybody to, give it a shot, because you might learn something with a group. And when I say give it a shot, I mean get out there with a group of people that, you don't practice with every day, with a coach you don't play for every day in the spring, because you just never know what you'll learn. And some guys will make relationships like I have that'll last forever, and some guys like Jaden will pick up on something instantly, and now all of a sudden, he's got a chance to go deeper in the game because his arm feels a little better. And there's a million stories like that. That's just the one that always sticks out to me. But, it's definitely been a blessing and something just really awesome to watch kids from other regions grow and kind of get to know each other.
Now, I want to make sure that I heard you correctly before when you said you were recruited to be a student assistant. Did I hear that phrase correctly?
Recruited is
not so. Yeah, maybe I added that word.
We had several offers, or I had several offers. Well, it was kind of a package deal. Anybody that knows me, so my best friend is a guy named Cameron Forte. Cameron was the best man at my wedding. He runs stick softball now. He's got a great story. His dad played in the NFL. Dad was NFL running back, 6'4", probably. Mom's like 5'1". Cameron comes out 5'5.5", and he's a catcher, and he's a really good catcher. And Cameron was a draft pick by the Dodgers. So while everything's going on, we have a really good friend group, and I was by far the least athletic, but I was also me and another guy were the youngest every year older than us. So this was kind of before the transfer portal. So, I'm not an idiot. Like, I know a lot of it was a lot of people wanted that group and thought that I could control some of the group, especially Cameron. So we had, we definitely, I was very fortunate, student assistant here, manager here, however you want to word it. But we were very fortunate, my family, to have options. And we ended up all kind of, everybody but one ended up going to Texarkana College. Everybody transferred back home. Me and the other guy that was my age, we all went to Texarkana. And Coach Bolt, Mansinger offered me a scholarship when he was there. He was the interim. Coach Bolt came in from Texas A&M, changed my life. He's now the head coach at Nebraska. That original staff that came in, Coach Bolt was our head coach. Justin Seeley was the assistant who he just left Oklahoma State. He was at Texas A&M for 10-plus years with Rob Childress. And then Brad Flanders came in. Brad's the bullpen catcher now, bullpen coach. I don't really know the term when they get to that level, but Brad's with the Phillies now in the big league team, so we're happy for them to go to the World Series or to, not – they didn't actually make the World Series, but have a shot, another year, 2 years in a row to have a shot in the World Series. I know he's doing really great things with the Phillies. So, we just had a great staff, and they wanted me to stay on. And kind of honored a little bit what Mansinger had. And I was there for 2 years, manager, student assistant, whatever coach needed. And then my third year, my academic situation wasn't great, to be honest. So I still needed to graduate. And they asked me to be assistant coach. So I got to help, Coach Flanders with the pitchers and catchers and essentially what was just an intern role. In 2009, interns wasn't really a thing, but, I got to help there. I got to help with recruiting, which was always been my specialty. And I just got to learn. I got to sit in on coaches' meetings and Coach Bolt just really, he went out of his way when I made it very hard on him to love me and to kind of guide me. He knew who I was before I had any clue. And I was a young, dumb kid, and he should have got rid of me probably a couple times, but Coach was awesome. And from there, ended up going over to Genoa Central, which is a high school, probably 20 minutes on the Arkansas side to finish my 4-year. And next thing you know, we're number one in the state every year. We win the state champ. I go in 11. We get beat by the state champions in the second round, and I was just going to do it for a year, I thought, and I had the time of my life. We had everybody coming back, so I was like, hey, I'll come back in 12 for one more year, and then I'll jump back into college. Had some things kind of working out and was getting some calls, and we ended up winning the state championship in 2012, went 31-1. I mean, it was almost, it almost felt like a drug or something. I mean, literally every day we're just winning and we're beating teams bigger than us, and it was awesome. We had a lot of kids coming back. A lot of kids on the team were sophomores. Come back in 13, we get beat in the semis. Come back in 14, win it again, going 31-1. And then in 15, I'm the head coach, win the regional, most wins in 3A, just had a great time, and life was great. And then 2016 and 17, I got to work with TJ Cox, which really changed my career. It really propelled me for this moment. Looking back at the time, I was mad and bitter and, had some – when you're not certified in Arkansas or not, I'm in the classroom every day and I'm doing all these things, but when you're not certified to coach football, it's a little bit easier to be replaced, especially, new football coach, new AD. So, was bitter at the time, but looking back, man, getting to work with TJ Cox is one of my best friends. And, on paper, we were the co-head coaches and kind of, just, I didn't know at the time. I was probably mentoring him and laughing about it. I don't know that that's what we would have called it because we were having so much fun. But he had come in from college and, didn't really understand, at times was getting taken advantage of by, maybe football or, just different things, our conference or whatever, and just trying to explain the landscape of life to someone who's very knowledgeable that had nothing to do with baseball really prepared me for this role I'm in now of now that we have this large, essentially beast of what we're trying to do, and we have programs throughout the country. The one thing I've learned is everybody knows baseball, right? Or they think they do. Some knows it better than others, some new school, some old school. What you don't know is how people treat other people when you're not there. You don't know how they talk to their assistants. You don't know how they talk to parents. You don't know. You just don't know. You don't know if it's a 10 a.m. game. Is somebody going to be there at 8:45, or are they going to show up at 9:20 and the kids have been there waiting on you? So looking back now, that whole 2-year period just really helped me just really communicate and work with people that weren't, maybe essentially ready for what the world was going to hit with them from the outside, because TJ knew more baseball than me maybe, but he didn't really realize why the worst kid on the team, Mama, couldn't understand why he wasn't playing. It just, to us, it was obvious why he wasn't one of our best 9, but, he didn't really expect for that conversation to ever occur, because he had came from college. And just being able to explain to him what was going on was awesome. And it really changed my life and was great. And then in 17, had some job opportunities, college and high school, and just said, hey, I'm going to take a leap of faith. We had grew it to 10 teams. We had some really good things going. It was going into our second year, or maybe we had 5 teams. We went from 2 teams to 5 teams to 10 teams. So our second year we had 5 teams. Had some things growing, kind of went to Sticks full time, took a leap of faith, and then in 2000, or the next year I took over. So that was 2000. Yeah, the next year I took over, which would have been the 2018 summer. We grew it to 10 teams. We doubled, and then we just never looked back. So this will be our 9th year to play. It'll be my 7th year to own it. And, man, it's just been such a blessing. And, the getting older is awesome, because you get to kind of reflect, and, but it feels like a lot longer than 15 years or however long it's been, what we were just talking about. But, it's really propelled us for this moment. And hopefully 10 or 15 years from now, this will be, however big the Sticks are now, hopefully that'll feel small then. Hopefully this is, just the middle of our run, or maybe still the beginning. And hopefully we'll keep growing and treating people right, and helping kids play summer baseball is what we hope.
Let me ask you a question about making that transition from into running this full time, because there's some guy out there who's he's teaching and coaching, an assistant coach or a head coach somewhere, and he's dabbling. He's got one foot on one side, one foot on the other. Like, how did you have the confidence to be able to go into the Sticks full time?
I think I don't know, to be honest with you. I think God kind of pushed me a little bit, to be honest with you. I think all of this is because of God, to be honest with you, because nobody that's a plus-size guy like me that wasn't a very good player should have one of the top summer organizations in the country. I mean, I didn't play in the big leagues. I didn't, do this. I didn't have an abundance of cash to flow it. We essentially had no cash. But we treated people right, and God put his hand on us and kind of made it happen. What I would tell people, now to be very clear, because I don't want to be irresponsible, there are people that have more years invested than others. I was at a point to where I felt like my retirement wasn't going to matter. I had like 7 years in, but I still got to work, 20 more to retire. Mm-hmm. And for a 24-year-old kid that wants to sleep till 10 every day, 20 more years felt like 120. So, mm-hmm. Some people have more options. I wasn't married. I have the greatest wife I ever could ask for. Again, God has blessed me professionally, but he's blessed my personal life as well. My wife, Alicia, I mean, we were together 10 years before I proposed, and just to be quite frankly, I couldn't afford it. And she knows that, and never pressured me, never ultimated me, never did anything. But, I wasn't married. We don't have kids. And essentially I had learned what I needed to make. I knew my numbers. That's what I would tell anybody really listening. like, hey, know your numbers. I mean, I knew exactly what I needed to live, and I knew what that calculated per player. And, you know, in my opinion, I thought it was very doable. We were already doing it when I made the transition. I thought of, you know, we didn't have $1 million home. We didn't have, you know, 2 brand new cars. We didn't have any of this stuff that everybody thinks they need at 24 years old. We had a very modest lifestyle. And we just, you know, I just said, hey, if not now, then it's never going to happen. And I would just tell anybody listening, the best thing I ever did was take a leap of faith. Again, I don't want to be irresponsible and give bad advice, but I think, you know, things that were important to me, you can't put a price tag on. Like me and my wife being able to take a vacation, or, you know, we had to go to a funeral Monday. We had to go to out of town yesterday. We got something to do tomorrow. You know, you can't work in a school system or at a college and, you know, just think that you're going to do all these things that you know, being an adult takes sometimes. And to me, that was the value. The value was not, you know, having to put in a time off sheet or, you know, asking somebody to leave early and they say, hey, you got to get a sub to cover your classes. And I really thought, hey, you know, if this doesn't work, because to be honest with you,
you could always go back. You could always go back.
You know, I was still young and dumb enough, and I had gotten some college offers, right, because that was always my dream. I really was ignorant and kind of felt like high school was a little bit beneath me, like maybe – and I don't feel like this now, just to be clear, but I felt like, you know, I wasn't a lifer. Like it wasn't something I felt like I was going to do forever anyway, and I was still kind of a little bit like, you know, hey, so-and-so wants me, and – you know, I was young and dumb, right? So I still kind of, my mindset was like, hey, if this doesn't work, I'll get to meet colleges. Well, this is what I took it as. Let's go try it. We're going to have good players. Colleges are going to want these players. Let me introduce myself. Let me network. And then if this doesn't work, I'll just get a GA job somewhere, get my master's, and I'll figure it out. Like, you know, I didn't really have a plan. I mean, I hate the way we're describing it because I feel like I had way more of a plan that I could put into words. But essentially, I just said, hey, man, like, this isn't what I'm going to do the rest of my life at this school or probably in the high school system. So let's just make the transition. And instead of, you know, jumping straight to where I thought I was always going to land, let's just make a pit stop and see what happens. And now, tenfold, I got – you know, I told Jeff Petty this on my podcast. I said, Jeff, there's about 50 good jobs in the country, high school, college, professionally, summer ball. I was like, Jeff, you got one of them. You got one of the top jobs in the world in our baseball profession. And I think we're right on the door. Like, I mean, I think Sticks are right on the door from being in there. I mean, I got it better than some colleges, a lot of colleges. I got it better than most high school coaches, but you know, we work very, very hard, and now we got new problems that we didn't have, you know, 10 years ago or 10 months ago, you know. But, you know, I just think anybody thinking about making the transition, what I would just recommend to you is know your numbers, know how much it costs to really live, and just, you know, put it important. What's important to you? Because some people, that check's important, that insurance is important, that – you know, every 2 weeks I know stability is coming in the form of a deposit. So with me, none of that stuff really mattered. I just didn't want to get up for 7:30 bus duty anymore. I was willing to risk. Not having insurance for a little bit to make sure that I could sleep till 9. And like I said, it worked out. And life's good, and we appreciate everything guys done for us for sure.
So you probably you don't know this because this is like the first time we've ever talked, but this is like bringing back memories for me because 16 years ago was my last time in the classroom, and I probably jumped too soon into doing my own thing. Like I probably could have used another year with the full-time job, you know. So like. Those guys who are listening and maybe they're doing something and they're looking to make a change, man, I think there's value in everything. I think there's some value in jumping too soon like I did, because if you don't, for some guys, if you give yourself this out, you know, like you won't go and do it hard. I don't know if that makes sense. Like if
For sure.
if you give yourself an excuse, like I'm gonna teach while I'm trying to run this little side thing. The little side thing will always be a little side thing, and so
Oh, there's no doubt.
so
Well, and I'll
I'm
tell you
glad
this too. I'll tell you this too. One of the main reasons I decided to get out was because in our building that I was in, we had no service, and Instagram and Twitter were
no
blocked.
kidding. That's
So
hilarious.
literally, the year we won, the year we were so good at MLK, we've been good every year, just to be frank, but we won it in 18. The year before, we were so good. As I'm trying to put that team together, I would literally go through Perfect Game. I would write down. I mean, this is a true story. Now you got to think this is just a different time than 2023. This is like 2016 as I'm building this 17. I think that's what it was. Might have been the next year, but I would literally write down like 5 or 6 names. I'd be like Max Mirasak, Hayden Travinsky. No. This is what school they go to. I would literally go. My classroom was the last one before the double doors. I'd write all that down off Perfect Game. I would literally walk outside, get service, search everybody on Instagram or Twitter, ask them if they had a team to play for the event, go back into my classroom. That's all I would do all day. And we were getting good results, right? Like different time. Everybody wasn't going to MLK. It's kind of how that was our big break, was to win it. That kind of jump-started our career. But, what I want to say, too, is I was so fortunate. We made there were 6 of us. We made the top influential people in our profession. JKR and those guys put together a list, and it was like me, Jeff Petty, AJ with Artillery, Nelly Gonzalez with FTB, Evan with Wow Factor, and Martin Ellis with USA Prime. Love all those guys, and it was a great list of something I'm so honored of. But when that list came out, there was a newspaper article, and it talked about being so influential, and I've really, since that list come out, I've really tried hard to like think about, when you say stuff or I give advice or somebody asks me, what the encouraging words I would have for someone, I realize that it's not. I realize that like what we say is way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. Like me, I'll listen to something Dion says or something Jesse Cole says or whatever, and I take it as truth. And then I have to realize that there are people that listen to me like that. I don't know how many. I hope it's a bunch. But, in this podcast. So what I would tell anybody, too, just to end the question a long time later, you know what you want to do. Like I knew what I wanted to do. I know what I want to do. I'm 34 now. I know what I want at 37, at 34. But there's little steps to get there. And, you really just need to follow your heart and you need to make it make sense. And, again, some people's situation is a little different. Some have kids. Some have obligations that they got to financially afford to. But, you know what you want to do. We all do, and we all got a dream. And, I hope every single person listening, I hope it's millions. I hope everybody gets to follow their dream, whatever that is, because it's a different life. My dad went to work every day at a place he didn't enjoy for the back half of his career, and I saw that and I knew that, and we're so lucky now because he actually works for me and Alicia. But man, it's a different world for doing what you want to do versus not doing what you want to do. And anybody listening, man, I encourage you to at least get to the edge. You ain't got to take the full step, but do enough work to make the decision for yourself. And I wish everybody luck in doing what they love, because it's a different life.
Well, you definitely mentioned something about there's somebody might be listening who's who holds you as sort of on their Mount Rushmore. So I definitely want to address one part of this. It sounds like you took a similar risk that I took when I was pretty short out of college, which was I went like 2 years without health insurance, which is ridiculous. Don't do that, guys. If you're listening, don't do that. I've looked it up. If you're 25 years old, healthy, and don't smoke, you can get yourself health insurance for about $100 a month. A few years ago, this is a side story. A few years ago, there was a volunteer assistant that got sick, and everybody's like, why doesn't this college provide him with health insurance? Which is honestly, it's a very fair critique. But if you know you're going to be a volunteer without benefits, one Uber shift, one night of delivering pizza, one day working a gig economy job, one day, one shift will pay for your health insurance. Please, if you're listening and you're young and you think you're invincible, I hope you are invincible, but like somebody else doing something stupid can wreck you. And just don't go do it. Don't.
Well,
Don't.
That's the good part about growing up. You know that now.
I do know that now, and listen, my dad tried to tell me, and I'm like, "You're an idiot, Dad." But now I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, I literally went like 2 years, and I was doing. I mean, like when I stopped playing baseball, I started whitewater kayaking. I mean, it doesn't get much riskier than that, Like, and most of the danger is probably not in the kayak. It's like walking around on wet rocks. It's like
For sure.
I could have ruined my financial future by slipping on a rock and having to be in and out of hospitals with surgeries for a decade because I busted some leg, or something like that. So anyway, I actually, several years ago when this whole story happened with that guy, the volunteer assistant who got sick, I actually signed up for Uber and went and worked one shift, made $100 just to prove that you can. And it literally took me one day. Just to say, guys, listen, I know you're very busy, but you also work on a campus, and around college campuses, people need Ubers. Go do it for 2 hours a night, 8 nights a month, and you're done. You got your insurance paid for. It's literally $100 a month. Anyway, that's a side note, just in case somebody's listening to you and they're like, I'm going to quit my job and go no insurance. Let's prevent that. You have mentioned Alicia, your wife, several times. I follow you. I follow you on Twitter. I mean, this is the first time you and I have ever talked, but I feel like I know Alicia because I follow you on Twitter. It's like she's obviously. I mean, listen, everybody's wife is important to them, but I don't post about my wife on my Twitter because she's not like she's not part of playing school. We have our own things. She does her thing. She doesn't tweet about me. I got my things, and I don't tweet about her. But Alicia's obviously like an important part. She's like right hand of you and the sticks. And anybody they follow you for about 5 days, and they're going to see that come across. Can you just talk about her a little bit? I know you said you were together 10 years before you proposed, but like what's her involvement? And yeah, just give her a little shout out for a minute.
Yeah, well, it goes to me. Again, it goes back to priorities, right? Like there are priorities that we have to say because we want to be good humans and good husbands and good mentors, and then there are like, again, we just talked about, hey, make a list of what's important to you, and our job, my job, our profession is it's very at times it's a lonely island, right? You got everything, you got great social media makes everybody look awesome. So when I think about, if I have to travel, we were gone at one point this summer like 26 out of 30 days. So when I start thinking about, what is going to make me the happiest in my career, what's going to make me the happiest to run Sticks baseball, what's going to make me the happiest to be the best coach and, human that I can be, organically 1,000,000,000%. This isn't like, just some lifetime, gone with the wind speech. This is true. There's nowhere I'll go if Alicia can't go. Like, I'm not coming. It's just I don't want to go. It's not like a simp or again, it's not a line. It just was very important to me to have a good weekend, to make sure my wife was there. And I always kind of felt it. I would come home and I would say, man, we played so well this week. Jaden did this, Connor did that, Jacoby did this. I mean, she didn't know the kids. And to be honest, she probably doesn't really care. Like she likes baseball and she's been to more games than half of my coaches and whatever. But at the time, because of she had a good job, she was very kind of high up in her job, and people love her. Like, she's beautiful and she's very nice, and just people like her. She was doing a good thing. She's one, she would never call in sick. She would never fake a sick day to go out of town. So she was great. And COVID hits. It was an awful time, but it was a blessing in my marriage. We had just got married in 19. We've been together about 15 years now. So I guess we had dated for about 11 years, and maybe dated 10, got engaged. I don't really know how it works anymore, but it's been a long time, thankfully, and it feels like it hasn't been, which means I got a good thing going. But in 19, we get married. 5 of our ushers are Sticks players, which was organic. It wasn't like some social media hit. Again, it was just these were people that she had been around, but she wasn't able to come every weekend. COVID hits, and she's at every game in 20, and she's still getting paid, and life's great. And then she goes back to work. Sticks Weekend is our biggest event from a headache. It's where we have all our kids. It's the first time we have to pass out uniforms. We have to do all this stuff, and it won't happen without her. I talk all the time about having extensions of myself, and that's what I have in certain people, Kyle Slayton, Evan Ham, Tim Decker. I have extensions of me to where when they say something, I never have to say, I wouldn't have done that, because we've just done a good job of hiring. Well, my wife is the biggest extension. There's nobody who knows more just what I would do. She'll be the first to tell a kid, like, hey, turn your hat around, Coach Brewster will be mad, or do this, or, yada, yada. She knows me better than anybody. Well, Sticks Weekend is kind of her deal. I'm on the field. We have 400 kids at the time going in and out of the indoor at Little Rock at their beautiful Division I facility. She just handles the whole indoor. It all gets taken care of. She's kind of savvy enough to know, like, hey, we need to make sure that this player has anything he wants because he's the best player here. She gets it. And where she was at told her she couldn't take off. It was my birthday. It was Sticks. It was our Friday. It was the last day of school. It was her birthday. It was my birthday, the last day of school, and Sticks, the start of Sticks Weekend, all at the same time. It was a Friday. And they said nobody could take off on the last day of school. And I just told her, and I mean, I had been, for a long time wanting her to quit. I didn't know if it was financially a smart thing to do, but I just said for what she made an hour, for the amount of time she worked, she had to be there at 5:30 in the morning or 6, something like that, something awful. I'm getting up early because she's up. She's going to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock every day. It's kind of putting a strain on our marriage. We weren't fighting or anything, but it wasn't like it just wasn't awesome. It wasn't anything I was excited about every day. And then when they tell my wife that she can't take off, I just was like, hey, and I didn't make her do anything, but I basically said, hey, look, nobody should be able to tell you what you can or can't do, assuming you're abiding. It's not like she had missed, 200 days or whatever. So anyway, thankfully we prayed about it, and she didn't want to start with, but she'll be the first one to tell you she hopes to never work again, and I hope she doesn't. So, and she does work, obviously, but not any like check in or anywhere. But so we got her to just basically come over to Sticks as an intern, a very expensive intern. But so she's been awesome. And I'll tell you, anybody listening, man, it was the best thing I ever did. I know I have friends and people that would never want to spend all day with their wife, but it really, it's been a blessing. If we could figure out how to take our 2 dogs with us every weekend, I could coach every day. So it's been awesome. Love Alicia, and I think a lot of our players love her, and our coaches, and like we'll get a house. We just had a house in Jupiter, and we got 7 coaches in there, and it's me and my wife, and at times early it was awkward, and now it's not at all. And I know that we have a mother in the dugout. I mean, she's not a technically mother, but we have a mother figure in the dugout. A couple months ago now, Brendan Clark gets extremely sick. His mom's not there. There was just something, and we just happened to know this family because they live in our hometown, but there was something a little bit more peaceful about my wife handling how to get this kid that's throwing up in the middle of the game. She actually told Gina, but it all happened while I was coaching third. She had already handled it before I come in the dugout. Now, I'm not saying there aren't males that can handle it. I'm not saying that I couldn't have handled it. But it's just a lot more, it just made me feel better as an owner that, she handled it and she knew what she was doing. And so anyway, very, very lot of perks. It's not financially responsible for everybody's wife to quit their job and hang out with them in the summer. I totally get that. But for our situation, it was awesome, and I thank God every day for it. And, it's something that I hope we get to do together forever. So she's in our dugout every game. She takes pictures. We send the pictures out every night. She takes pictures for the kids, and she's been a huge help. And it would be an awful job if she wasn't a part of it.
Now we will eventually talk about a little bit of travel baseball stuff here in a second. But and by the way, I appreciate you sharing that stuff about your wife. That was cool.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, she doesn't have Twitter. She does not have a Twitter. So anything you see on Twitter, it's because I want to. It's not because sucking up, or she don't have LinkedIn, or I mean, she don't even know it's out there. So.
Lucky her. Earlier, you mentioned and kind of just breezed by, but I want to come back. I want to circle back and just spend a second talking about Sticks softball. This is kind of interesting. Like I told you before we hit record, this is a topic that's probably come up less than 5 times on the podcast. I've done 150 plus episodes. And the question I ask, and I've tweeted about this a few times as well, it's like, listen, baseball and softball are not the same. They have similar positions on the field. It looks kind of similar, but it's not really the same. There's different cultural stuff. It's a different animal, but the back end administrative piece is kind of the same, kind of similar, right? You're like, I'm going to hold a tryout. I'm going to pick some players. Right? Like, so you could be using your same back end admin for baseball as you're using for softball. So my question is like, why isn't everybody adding softball? You have. Can you talk about like why you did, when you did, how's it working out? Do you recommend it for other people? Did you absorb an existing organization, or did you start with a fresh, clean slate? Talk to me just a few minutes about softball.
For sure. So what we did was we were very fortunate, and I'll be the first one to tell you, softball was not my passion. And it's just not going to be, and there are guys that'll lie to you, and, everybody can't have a million passions. What I had was 2 individuals that softball was their passion. We had one in Cameron Forte. Cam was the best man at my wedding. He's been my best friend for 20-plus years. He married a beautiful woman named Shallon, and she had a daughter that he adopted. She's now a 10th grader. And the daughter played softball. And Cam basically taught himself the rules and the passion for it to help her. And it is a niche, right? Like anything else, there's not a lot of great softball instructors. There's not a lot of great ones because there's not a lot of them. For there to be 10 great ones, there's got to probably be 200 total. So he found a niche, and it was awesome. It's been great for our community here in Texarkana. Jay Lupo had a son who played with us. They committed to Arkansas. He was on my team. Brandon Arledge was a really good left-hander. Jay's daughter was coming up. This is probably 3 or 4 years ago. Jay goes, hey, I don't really, want to buy new gear. I have all this stick gear. Do you care if we call ourselves Stick Softball? So what we did was Jay Lupo ran Central, Cam ran Texarkana. It's about 2.5 hours apart. And we grew it at cost. Essentially, we grew it at a rapid pace in 2 or 3 years. I think it was about 3 years. And I didn't make $1 off of that. So anybody listening on the administrative side, we do things a lot different on Sticks than other people do, and that's fine. Like, I am very, very, very. I don't want to be the guy that takes a trip and none of my friends can come. Like, I want everybody to eat, essentially. So, how successful financially it was for those guys, I don't think it was lucrative because we did it at cost and we were just trying to build it. Essentially we did get there, and Jay kind of broke off recently on good terms, and he wanted to basically follow his passion, and they kind of changed their name over to Arkansas Prime, which is fine. I mean, obviously I'm a little bitter that they're not all Sticks because I love Sticks, but it's hard for me to be bitter at someone for chasing their dreams. So it was all fine, and essentially the same model, right? Like, we're still growing it. We're giving people opportunity to play softball, and hopefully we can help, every girl that wants to play with us play college softball. It's a lot harder. Softball's a lot different, I'll tell you, where we have age groups of, 15, 16, 17, 18. It'll be 4 different age divisions. They have 2. They play 12U, 14U, 16U, 18U. So it gets a little confusing at times, but, the best thing I would tell somebody listening is what we have is an awesome uniform situation with Decker. I would say I'm in the greatest situation there could be. So as far as when it comes to uniforms and hard goods and, pro shops and, making sure every parent had gear that we were already making, I think that we were able to help tenfold without even trying on that stuff. I kind of let them handle some of the back end stuff. Like, I didn't say, hey, you can only need to play in 5 tournaments because that's financially responsible. I was kind of letting those guys figure it out. And along the way, we are going to incorporate that into our business model. And, we're not bad businessmen. We want to do things right and do things, at a high level. So, but we just wanted people to wear it. And that's how we started. We weren't one of those guys that said, if we can't make $1 million, we're not going to do something. We just said, hey, let's go somewhere, and there's many people that's wearing Sticks that's going to be good for us, and that's how we did it, and I would recommend that to anyone.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, finally, I wanted to, probably no better person to ask this question to regarding travel baseball than you, because you are a thought leader. You're neck deep in all these, in every single topic. But this is my sort of attempt to look for opportunities for improvement. And so I ask the question the same way every time. It's, what one change do you think could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
I think the one thing that I don't know how you would do it, and I don't know anybody to listen to my podcast and Chase Brewster say, we end it with everyone of, we want to be a part of change. And it's not just about travel baseball, because if we can change the world, it'll change travel baseball as a whole. But, so I'm right there in alignment with you on the whole change. And I don't necessarily know how this would happen, but I think the very, very, very unfortunate part about our business, and especially my situation, is while there are a handful of people out there that'll tell you I'm not. I'm almost too truthful and too transparent when it comes to people. 2 years in a row, I've lost a starting infielder. Actually, this year we lost 2. Not because they didn't like us, not because they didn't like me. They'll tell you. Like, one of them will tell you, hey, Coach, this is the best summer I've ever had. I found a love for baseball I had lost, but this team over here is promising me this. 2 years ago, we had one of the best left-handed hitters in the country. He's like, hey, this team right here is telling me I'm going to play shortstop every pitch at Jupiter. I'm like, no, I watched you play short all summer. That is not going to happen. Next thing you know, it's Chase Brewster, Coach Brewster, Sticks Baseball. Don't think I'm a good shortstop. Don't think I'm a shortstop. They don't believe in me. Well, in turn, when he went over there, the only game he started at short was the game they won 10-0. He played short a little bit in a blowout, another pool play game, but he played third, which is exactly what he would play for us. Actually, in our night game on day 3, he's in our dugout. He's standing so close to our dugout because he played with us all summer. And I love the kid. I still do. Mm-hmm. The kid's standing so close to our dugout, all our kids are talking to him. I was like, hey, just come in. Just come in the dugout. Mm-hmm. One of my coaches goes, I never would have let him in. I'm like, hell, he wants to be here. I mean, he's just a 17-year-old kid that was lied to. Our job essentially is to persuade parents that don't know any better to play for us. And when I'm honest, and when this group's not, and we go through it every year, especially when it comes to two-way players. I just had to have a talk the other day with a dad who still thinks his son's a hitter too, and he's like, well, this group's saying he's going to hit. I'm like, I know. I'm just telling you, we try to get all our problems out before we start playing because I don't want you every day to text me in the summer, why are you doing this, why are you doing that? So I'm trying to be honest where, I wish there was some kind of rating or review or, some kind of Airbnb model to where, and granted, look, all our reviews wouldn't be great because if they were, we'd never lose anybody. But I always say, you want to know who does a really good job, look at retention. Now, retention doesn't cover people all of a sudden might play Legion because it's cheaper. They might have a high school extended team and their high school coach wants them to play. But if you have 400 kids, about 40 are going to be unhappy at a minimum. Unfortunately, 10% are going to say, hey, this wasn't a good fit. My team wasn't no good. I should play shortstop and hit leadoff. I was hitting 6-hole and playing second, so this organization sucks. And then there'll be some that have, legitimate gripes. Unfortunately, we've put together really good teams on paper that didn't win a lot. This past summer, I thought our worst team they won 2 of their 5 tournaments. They played well. And unfortunately, we can't do that. We can't play for them. And we got good teams that play bad. We got not as good teams that play great. And, there are people that have legitimate beefs at times in all organizations. But my thing is, when there's one group or a handful of groups, the Jeremy Peacocks of the world at Team Louisiana, the Mike Garcia Part, GBG, guys that I love and respect who are very honest. And then there are other guys that are selling, and like in the media, these guys are respected and whatever, and I don't disrespect them it's not that I don't have respect for them because they did their job. They got a really good player. But this is 2 years in a row that we've had a combined 4 people tell me, if I knew what I would have knew, I would have played with you. And, we had a kid this summer, top 20 player in the country. His dad told me at WWBA playoffs, he said, if I knew, and they had just won like 2 events in a row, 2 huge events. He said, after we won the last event, we were in the car home and you were still playing. He was watching your game on PG. He said, and basically the dad said the same thing. If the kid and the dad basically both said the same thing. If we knew what we knew now, we still would have played with Coach Brewster, even though the team he was on was better.
Yeah.
And people get so caught up into what position they're getting promised or what bat lineup and all this stuff. And we try so hard not to promise anything other than we only try to take 11 or 12 hitters on our top team and we bat 10 a game. That's what we promise. We lost a kid for next summer that, at Jupiter, he didn't play center every day. But he's a top-ranked center fielder in a younger division. We had an older kid just outplay him, so he had to play left. They weren't very happy. I'm like, guys, hey, man, when you get 10 really good players on the field, it's going to happen. It just is what it is in our league. There's about 25 summer teams, the Canes, the FTBs, the Royal Scout team, the artillery, the whoever. You get about 25 teams out there. Every kid out there is a shortstop or a center fielder, all of them, including the catcher. They all can hit 3-hole and lead off, and I just think there should be some kind of the people being honest with people should have the 5-star reviews to be like, hey, when Chase Brewster tells you that you're a second baseman and not a shortstop, or he's going to play you at second, that shouldn't be a disadvantage because Team B tells you you'll play shortstop every day and you play 5 innings there all summer.
Here's what's coming to my mind. You mentioned Airbnb reviews, and that could be a sort of solution. I seem to remember this thing, and back from my teaching days, there used to be a thing called, I think it was like Rate My Professor or something like that.
Yeah.
Which sounds like you could say like rate my organization, and people can go in there and put comments in there. Here's the problem. Most people who go online, like they're going to go on Yelp or whatever to make a review, they're pissed off. It's very rarely the person who's super pleased and happy and the experience matches what their expectations were. So that, like I love that idea, but it would be full of disgruntled individuals.
Or it'll be anonymously, which I think sucks even more because,
Yeah.
you can make a fake account. And like I said, I don't have a perfect solution, but I think as far as my opinion, the worst part about it is the absolute worst part about my profession is when I hear something like, if I knew you were the only one being honest with us, we would have played with you. Or if I know what I knew now, we'd have played with you. It doesn't make me feel better.
I don't know if this,
right.
A lot of times when people when I ask this question and they bring up an idea, a lot of times I push back on them, and like they'll have a halfway decent idea, and I'll say go do it. You can do that. Like, you don't need anybody's permission. Go do the thing. I don't think I can just like tell you that same blanket go do it, but the suggestion that I think you're probably already doing, and other coaches can kind of learn from this, is up front when people are thinking about coming over to you, it's leading with tons of transparency, as honest and as blunt as you can. And you can even tell these type of stories that you just told me and say, because.
Well, here's what you have to do, right? Here's what you have to do. Here's what we built our entire program on: word of mouth. It's what every good business has been built on, right? I mean, it is what it is. But unfortunate is, you live in Richmond, Virginia. Let's say you have a good player. You're shopping them essentially. I mean, it's not like a great term, but that's what's going on. There's some options. Every good player's got out. That's what America was built on. So you don't know me. You know nobody that's played with us. You just see me on Twitter and make nice posts about my wife, and we love people and whatever. And I'm telling you, hey, I'm just being honest. Your kid's not going to play shortstop because Landon Schaefer's our shortstop next summer. You go, hey, well, this team over here said. I'm like, I don't want to talk. I'll never say a bad word about those guys. Maybe that's true, but in the past. Yeah. So now the next time somebody from Richmond, Virginia asks you, hey, did you like playing with XYZ? You go, no. Listen, this one guy. The problem is every kid we're talking about, they weren't like, they had to find out the hard way. So what I hope is when somebody asks them, the trick in that is I need another 10 years in the business for everybody to circle back through and go, But in our region, I think it's definitely, good people talk and younger good players seek out advice from older good parents. So I think in our region it's fine. It's just a matter of it's hard to go to these national events with all regional players, and I think we all know that, and we've seen that. So a lot of our problems are kind of outside of our spectrum that word of mouth will fix over time. But all I can do is keep treating people right and keep we got zero problems in the winning department. We'd all like to win a little bit more, including the guys that go undefeated. But we've had some huge wins off the field that mean more than any Jupiter win or whatever. So we're just going to keep doing things right and keep taking care of the players that want to be with us, and we're going to keep being honest to people, and hopefully it'll keep us staying on top.
I think that is a perfect statement to bring this episode to a close. I've appreciated getting to know you, and I hope that you and I get to know each other more in the future. And this episode will be, hopefully next week it'll go live. It'll be playinschool.com/Brewster. I did a terrible job not directing traffic to your Twitter, your podcast, the Sticks website, but all that stuff will be linked when this thing goes live. So we'll share it. Do you have any final parting shots for any parent, coach, player who might still be listening with us an hour and 3 minutes in?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope everybody's still listening. But what I'll tell you is you had sent me over some questions, and I wanted to make sure I answered one because it really changed my life. I try to read every night. I try to go to every night before I go to bed, even if it's a little bit. I just try to read. But you had asked me, what kind of book changed, how you felt or whatever. I mean, I just want to say, anybody listening, Jesse Cole with the Bananas has kind of been a mentor from afar. He's been awesome. But Jesse, he's written 3 books, but he wrote Fans First. I thought we were successful because we were successfully financially and college commitment and all that stuff. When I read Fans First, I literally changed how I viewed life. Like, instead of assuming that, like, this ninth grader that played for us and committed and was on a really good team, instead of assuming that he was going to play for 4 years because we had been good to him, I literally changed immediately and felt almost guilty that I assumed that people want to play with sticks because we're good. You know, it really changed how I went about just treating people, following up, not taking things for granted. You know, you never know how people feel. And when you got 400 players, that's at least 800 parents. If you add in step parents and grandparents, you probably got 1,000 different feelings to deal with. And instead of assuming that 1,000 different people are happy or 800 are happy or whatever, you know, the book really taught me that it's not financial success, it's not on the field success, it's not off the field success, it's relationships, which I knew, but it really hit home in a different way. So, I recommend anybody reads Fan First by Jesse Cole. And, I actually started my LinkedIn account because that's what he posts on. You know, I'm not ashamed to say that, but he's got some really good stuff on there too.
That's
but, man,
that's Savannah Bananas for you guys at home listening. That's the owner and founder of Savannah Bananas that are, I mean, honestly, they're changing the game. They're literally changing the sport. And I mean, some of the stuff I look at and I'm like, okay, that's silly. And then some of the stuff he's doing, I'm like, oh, that needs to be the new normal. Like,
have you been to a game?
I have not yet. I have not.
So I'd say the biggest thing is you don't know that it's kind of you don't when you're in the. Now we got to watch them play. We went to 2 games. Actually, their umpires from Texarkana, Vincent Chapman, who's a good friend of mine, and who my wife used to work together. His kids played with us, and he's awesome. But we went, big fan of everybody. They had Savannah on my show and my podcast, and it just kind of got to know a couple people in the organization. So we went in Kansas City, and they played the Monarchs, who had a bunch of ex-MLB players on there, and their velos were really good. You know, at times some guys were 93, 95 for the Monarchs, but I had no idea how good a baseball it was. Like, absolutely, like, all the tricks aside that you don't really even – like, the tricks don't even really – when you see it in person, it's not justice. Like, the tricks are way cooler on TV. And I don't mean that any disrespect if Jesse ever hears this, because I love Jesse. But the baseball was damn
You
awesome.
can't – well, look,
it was real.
Let me see if I can sum it up as what you're saying. You can't catch a fly ball while doing a backflip if you're not a good baseball player first. Like, it's bonkers, the stuff they're doing. It's bonkers.
Yeah, but even more so than that, I mean, just like a routine ground ball to short, like not a million person, 10 million, 100 million, like they're getting viral clips.
Yeah.
Just a ball that their shortstop's got to go 4 steps to his left, turn and throw. Nobody's excited because it's not a bare hand play. And I'm like, man, that's impressive. Like for a essentially what we consider not good enough to play professional baseball. Yeah. And again, the Monarchs were very talented. But the things that were awesome was they played the music the whole time, which was awesome just because it was awesome. From a fan, like, I don't know about coaching and real games and yada yada, but from us watching this game that I didn't really care who won, awesome.
That's
how they
right.
played
That's right.
music the whole time. And then just, the other thing that was really awesome as a fan was the Monarchs scored like 5 in the first, but it just counts 1-0. So it ended up being it ended up being a real game when it would have probably been a blowout, unfortunately.
I think their experimentation is so refreshing. And while if we were going to rewrite all the rules for Major League Baseball and the sport that we play, the sport that we're involved in, the Bananas are figuring out which direction to go. And quite frankly, I mean, some of the things that we're doing, I'll back up. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, big Twitter guy, big. Yeah. Okay, so he was asked about it years ago, and I think this was pre-Bananas when I was listening to this episode, and he was like, I could fix baseball. He's like, but we have to rewrite the rules. So, like, throwing a ball, swinging a bat, same. It's going to look. We're going to use the same equipment, but the rules are going to change because the whole thing is like it's gotten kind of boring. And Major League Baseball is breaking their arms, patting themselves on the back because they moved a game from 4 hours to 3 hours. Okay, cool, big deal. But like I think the Bananas are onto something, and I think that Major League Baseball is going to have to take a close look at some of the places where the Bananas are just doing things completely different or a completely new way, because it's awesome.
Well, the thing is, listen, until you have ideas, it starts with ideas, right? You have to be creative. You have to have ideas. You have to have research and development. You have to have trial and error, yada, yada. But until you're, like, essentially comfortable enough or confident enough to do something in public, on social media, in front of
100%.
the 30,000 people they do, it is very easy at this point to say, well, this was stupid or this was great.
Exactly.
But it took so much, and this is the respect I have for him, is it took so much of almost a campaign of going, hey, everybody's not going to like it, and that's okay. It was almost like he was a political figure running against MLB. And, he's very head down, centric on, let's worry about this. And I think we all can learn from that because we all can change baseball essentially in our profession more so than maybe any of amateur baseball because we have the best players in the world before they get to college, before they get to, pro ball. And it kind of starts with us, right? So I think, even before you change the rules, if we just, somewhere along the way, we as a profession let baseball get boring. I don't personally think it's boring because I love it and I love the Yankees and they play 4 hours no matter what. So it is what it is. But the thing is, we did that. Like somewhere in our profession, kind of before my time, it didn't start in the past 10 years, but, at some point as, guys were graduating and, advancing into their draft classes and making their way up to professional baseball, or maybe it came down. Maybe professional baseball came, influenced this generation. However you want to look at it, kind of the gatekeepers are the guys that have the best amateur players, and then they go to college and pro ball. So I think we all can do our part to put, the heartbeat back into something we love so much. And, and I'll come back on in years from now when we've done more great things. But I can get on a whole rant about, hey, there's no reason that Kyler Murray should play in the NFL. Like the MLB should have gave him so much money to not play football. You start talking about Deion and Bo Jackson and, John Elway's draft, and we can go all through it. And recently there's other people, Jameis Winston and, all of these guys that are going to play NFL or college football essentially. Why? I mean, why weren't they at 18 given enough money to be if we had the best athletes in the world playing baseball, or if we had the best athletes in America playing baseball, I think you would see a different situation as far as, how many people tune in to watch Kyler Murray play football every Sunday just to watch Kyler Murray. And I get it's a different situation because he's got the ball in his hands every snap. But, getting some of the best athletes to play the sport we all love, and then you have the international side, which is fantastic. If you mix those two things, right now it's almost international versus America, and it's a bad thing. If you mix, and, in my opinion, the problem right now is the international side doesn't play football or basketball, essentially, majority. So the Dominicans and all of that, the international side of baseball is all trying to get to the big leagues. For our best players in America essentially have choices, which is, again, fine. But baseball as a whole is not getting the best players there, which is it's hard to get excited about at times when you don't get to follow the best players in America. So baseball's got some problems, but we're going to be on the forefront of trying to fix those things and keep doing good things. And hopefully there'll be more Sticks players make it. And all
this was a tremendous parting shot because I'm glad you brought that up. Let's stop the recording there, and we're gonna have you back on. Don't hang up, but let's stop the recording. Don't hang up yet.
Okay.